On the day of the wedding, I got my wife drunk and gave her to her first love. And I got exactly what I wanted, 10 million. Looking at the money in my hands, I felt like I was on top of the world. Ding! StoryShots reminds you to click the subscribe button at the bottom right corner to read the full novel. But just as the elevator reached the first floor, my old phone started ringing. I pulled out my phone and saw that it was Yasmin calling. As soon as I pressed the answer button, a woman's frantic voice came through. "Francis Clark, you're really generous, giving your wife away on your wedding day. It's because you have waited 3 years for him to marry, and he hasn't married in 3 years just to wait for you. I'm just doing this for your sake." There was a moment of silence on the other end, followed by Yasmin's gritted teeth voice. "Francis, if you don't want to die, come back to me." Okay, I'll be right back," I said while running out of the hotel. Ugh, only a fool would go back. Why not enjoy the money instead? Everyone who knew Yasmin Bailey knew she liked Holden Gregg, but she married me just to please the old man of the Bailey family. When she first said she wanted to marry me, I thought the ancestral graves of the Clark family had come back to life. How could Yasmin Bailey, who had everyone in the city wrapped around her finger, want to marry me? But soon reality hit me hard. On the engagement day, she went missing. Guests and I waited in the hotel for over 10 hours before she finally showed up and said, "Sorry, I had something to take care of." Later, I heard rumors that she had flown abroad to celebrate her first love's birthday, which is why she was late. I might be poor, but I still have my pride. I'm not going through with this marriage. Not now. Not ever. I want to call off the engagement immediately. But Yasmin had the agreement we signed, which stated that if the Clark family did not go through with the marriage, we would owe 100 million in penalties. I was stunned. Who signed this? My parents were avoiding eye contact with me among the guests. I suddenly realized I had been sold. On the day of my engagement, I, Francis Clark, went from the most envied man in a city to a laughingstock. The wealthy young masters who used to idolize me were now secretly mocking me, saying I was merely a pawn to please the old man of the Bailey family. I could tolerate a lot, but not this. So, on my wedding day, I gave Yasmin to Holden Gregg in exchange for 10 million. I looked at the money in my hands, grinning from ear to ear. Soon enough, I'd make enough to pay off the 100 million and kick that big jerk Yasmin out of my life. With my knowledge of making money, the quickest way was through the entertainment industry. I took the 10 million and entered Fenley Family's entertainment company, which was as famous as the Bailey family, ready to become an artist. Just as I took off my sunglasses to audition, I was horrified to see the judging panel. Can someone tell me why Yasmin's sworn enemy, Velvet Fenley, is sitting there? She, a well-to-do young lady, should be out enjoying life, not propping up her own company. Velvet looked at me with a playful smirk. "Mr. Clark, isn't today your wedding day? Why do you have time to come audition here?" I opened my mouth but suddenly didn't know how to respond. But money makes people desperate. I had to do this for the remaining 90 million. I forced a smile and said without missing a beat, "Yes, Miss Fenley, I dropped Yasmin today and specifically came to audition." I hoped she could see my love for money. Oh no, my spirit of dedication. "Mr. Clark, please don't joke with me." "Next," she said, turning to the actor behind me. But there was no way I was giving up this opportunity. Just as security was about to escort me out, I threw myself at her legs and pleaded, "Velvet, have pity on me. Yasmin is such a jerk." On the engagement day, she celebrated Holden's birthday, and now on the wedding day, she wants to spend the night with him. We signed an unfair contract, and I can't pay the penalty. I'll end up stuck with the Bailey family forever. What does your dying at the Bailey family have to do with me? Velvet replied coldly. I didn't expect this woman to be so heartless, so I gritted my teeth and shouted, "How can it not be related? You're carrying my child." The room fell silent. Velvet looked at me, gritting her teeth. "Francis Clark, what nonsense are you talking? How can you be even more shameless after becoming a Bailey son-in-law?" Seeing she wanted to have security take me out, I closed my eyes and pretended to faint. After a long while, Velvet's voice came from beside me, "Everyone's gone." "Francis, stop pretending." Velvet grew up with me, so she knew my level of shamelessness was unmatched. To avoid unnecessary misunderstandings, she had to send everyone else away. But after I agreed to marry her enemy, Yasmin, we became estranged. I carefully squinted my eyes open, and when I saw everyone had left, I quickly got up from the floor and sat down on a chair next to Velvet. Velvet, I want to enter the entertainment industry. Isn't the Bailey family powerful? Why would Mr. Clark want to humble himself in the Fenley family? I want a divorce, but the contract states that any money earned through the Bailey family's connections and channels does not belong to me as personal property. I only have this left. I placed over £200 of cash in front of her, money I earned from selling Yasmin. Of course, according to the terms of the contract, this money doesn't actually belong to me, so I didn't feel a bit guilty giving it to Velvet. What do you mean by this? She knew my obsession with money, and seeing me hand her so much cash was like making arrangements for my last wishes. Her expression turned a little grim. I want to invest in the company. I want to make money and break the contract with the Bailey family, becoming a single aristocrat. She looked at me doubtfully. If you had known it would come to this, why did you marry Yasmin in the first place? Could it be that I? She suddenly stopped mid-sentence. I blinked at her. What was wrong? Forget it, take the money back. Mr. and Mrs. Clark's health isn't great, buy them some nutritional supplements, and remember to report to the company tomorrow. I looked at Velvet. This friend was really too good. If it weren't for the fact that a rabbit doesn't eat grass near its burrow, I wouldn't have married Yasmin Bailey in the first place. Marrying Velvet and playing games with her every day would have been much better, right? The next day I went to work wearing sunglasses, while the trending news was already blowing up. Shock. Yasmin Bailey slept with her sugar baby on the day of her wedding. Rumor has it that the son-in-law of the Bailey family has gone crazy, causing a scene at the rival company and claiming that she have their own child. Looking at the notifications on my phone, I couldn't help but smirk. It's a pity that these netizens don't write novels. Yasmin was famous for being rich and beautiful, and Holden Gregg was a rising star in the entertainment industry, while I was just a nobody without even a photo to my name. But this actually made it easier for me to break into the entertainment circle. The Fenley family was indeed a powerful company, handling almost everything a newcomer needed. Since we were going to be on a variety show, the company arranged for a teacher to train us for 3 months. During this time, Yasmin kept calling me, but I rejected all her calls. I was too busy to battle with her now. Women only slow down my money-making speed. Once we all completed our training, we finally appeared on the orange TV screen, but when I saw who was sitting on the judges' panel, I suddenly didn't want to participate anymore. There were 4 judges, 3 of whom I knew. Sitting in the middle was a stunningly beautiful woman radiating charm while laughing and chatting. She was none other than my wife, Yasmin Bailey. Next to her was Velvet Fenley, and at the end was Holden Gregg. I should have had a name in this relationship, but standing on stage now made me feel inferior, like an idle trainee, almost wanting to turn and leave. This show shouldn't be called Sprint, Youth, it should be renamed Social Death, The Ex-Husband. When the guests were introduced, Yasmin could still manage a relaxed smile at first. But when the host introduced me, Yasmin's facade cracked. She sat there, coldly stating my name. Frances Clark. This wasn't a question but an accusation. Even from a distance, I could feel her anger. The host, unaware of the gravity of the situation, cheerfully asked, "Ms. Bailey, do you know this handsome guy?" Her question undoubtedly poured salt on Yasmin's wound. With the Bailey family's immense wealth, her newlywed husband was up on stage singing and dancing. Where would that leave the Bailey family's reputation? As expected, Yasmin's face darkened instantly. I know him. Her words drew significant attention to me, and the host looked at me in surprise. After all, not everyone could catch her eye. But I called out on stage, Amitabha. This woman really wouldn't let go. There were countless ways to show off with Holden. Sigh, she's a domineering woman, she wants to be high profile. She had to participate in the same program as her first love and run into her new husband. This melodramatic plot is something even novels wouldn't dare to write. I looked at Velvet, hoping she could explain what was going on. But she seemed to have no awareness of my existence, glaring at Yasmin with annoyance, as if she wanted to kick her off the judges' panel. So on this stage, I was the only one getting hurt. Soon the show began. Thanks to Velvet being my backdoor, my performance order and the show itself were pretty good. While others performed solo, singing and dancing, I had a female dance partner. So when I held my partner's hand and went on stage, Yasmin's face was dark enough to drip ink. Bang! Yasmin hit the elimination button. Everyone turned to look at her. The performance hadn't even started, and she was already hitting the elimination button. The host, with a decade of hosting experience, smiled and tried to smooth things over. "Ms. Bailey, you must have pressed the wrong button by accident." Yasmin didn't respond, looking at me with a face full of impatience. Seeing the awkward atmosphere, the host could only signal backstage, and the music began to play. So I reached for my dance partner's waist. "Yasmin, bang." I gazed deeply into my dance partner's eyes. "Yasmin, bang." The organizers didn't dare offend her and could only say the machine was broken, but the audience's eyes were sharp. "What broken machine?" Yasmin pressed it herself. Everyone captured this moment on their phones. As the song ended, the sound of the elimination button from Yasmin's side didn't stop. Later, as I stood on stage, drenched in sweat, Velvet shot an annoyed glance at Yasmin. "Ms. Bailey, are you sure your hands are okay? I know an amazing old doctor who can give you a couple of acupuncture needles to check it out." "No need, I'm in great health." "You can keep the old doctor for yourself, Ms. Fenley." The two exchanged sharp words for quite a while the audience below looked as if they were witnessing a world-famous painting. Only I remained indifferent on stage. Why couldn't these two women change their habit of bickering every time they met? Finally, I couldn't hold back anymore and smiled as I took the host's microphone. "Ahem, could the two judges please decide my fate?" Suddenly interrupted, Yasmin and Velvet both turned to me, pausing their battle. It was no surprise that Yasmin pressed the elimination button while Velvet pressed the pass button. The unknown judge was still looking around, wanting to see the organizer's opinion, and surprisingly, Holden also pressed the pass button. Now everyone looked at the quiet judge, who was being stared down by Yasmin and Velvet. Finally, he mustered the courage to press the pass button. I grinned from ear to ear on stage. It seemed that Holden was quite satisfied with Yasmin, or else he wouldn't have passed me. But I realized I was celebrating too early. Not long after I entered the backstage, the organizers pulled me aside for a talk. "Francis, graduated from Excavator Technical College, trained for 3 months, no experience." A balding man who looked like a leader read my resume. I cautiously replied, "Yes. For the next recording, you don't need to come. We will give the audience a reasonable explanation." This felt like a bolt from the blue. I hadn't even debuted and was already being put on ice? "Sir, didn't I pass? Why do I have to leave this competition? You offended Ms. Bailey, and you still want to make it in the entertainment industry. Who gives you the confidence?" "It's me who gave it." As soon as I finished speaking, Velvet walked in from outside. It was intermission, and the judges had come backstage. Yasmin still looked at me with disapproval. "This Ms. Fenley, he's just a newcomer." The leader wanted to persuade Velvet, but Yasmin grabbed my arm and coldly said, "Francis, are you having fun out there?" The leader looked perplexed. I shook off her hand, pretending not to know Yasmin. "Who are you?" "I don't know you." Velvet shot a few knowing glances at the people around, and they discreetly left. "Francis, do you want me to help you remember whether you know me or not?" Saying this, Yasmin pulled me to a nearby sofa, and Velvet quickly stepped between us to shield me. "This is our artist, please show some respect, Ms. Bailey." The two women stood together, a mix of fire and ice, the tension palpable. At this moment, Holden couldn't help but quietly advise, "Yasmin, don't be angry." Hearing this, Yasmin coldly snorted and sat down beside me. Once everyone had left, and I wouldn't expose my identity, I finally spoke slowly. "Yasmin, you're marrying me just to please your father, so why can't we develop our public personas while doing our own things privately?" I admit I was initially captivated by her looks, but later she kept entangling herself with Holden. So, if she stuck with her ideal man, and I earned $90 million in the entertainment industry before we broke up, wouldn't that be great? Hearing this, Yasmin finally looked at me properly. "You're still a Bailey, and it's not appropriate to be seen with other women while exposing our relationship on the show." I could sense the implication behind her words. She thought I was embarrassing her, but wasn't Holden also acting? Why didn't she complain about him? Indeed, everything is sweet-smelling in front of a dog. Why is it inappropriate? No one knows our relationship, and I haven't spent any of your money. Your true love is waiting to take the throne beside you, after all. Yasmin gave me a cold look and simply said, "Francis, I advise you to mind your own business and return to the Bailey family to do what you should." I couldn't help but roll my eyes at her. What was I supposed to go back to? Watching her and Holden appear on variety shows together, flaunting their love? while I remained a mute groom in the Bailey family? Seeing my impatience, Yasmin shot me a cold glance and turned to leave. But this time, Holden didn't follow her. He slowly walked up to me. "Francis, don't think that just because you entered the entertainment industry, you'll get the same attention from Yasmin as I do." Could he be any more narcissistic? If I don't enter the entertainment industry to make money and break off the engagement, would a strong wind blow 90 million in front of me? I just wish the God would lock this pair of ungrateful people away and not let them come out to ruin my life anymore. Under Velvet's pressure, the organizers still couldn't kick me out of the variety show. Due to Yasmin's attitude towards me, I gained a lot of attention from the audience. Everyone thought there was gossip to uncover, but after digging around, nothing came to light. With Velvet's management, I successfully debuted and gained a bit of popularity, and soon I was offered a role in a TV drama. I never expected that my first drama would earn me $1 million. Although I was still far from paying off the breach of contract fee, at least I had a good start. So I began to move between various production teams, striving to improve myself, and finally gain some recognition in the entertainment industry. The latest drama was a collaboration with Holden Gregg. Originally, this drama was supposed to feature a single male lead, but the screenwriter found that the second male lead had a distinctive personality. So they forcibly changed it to a dual male lead, causing the fans of both families to argue over who was the primary lead. Since we were in the same production team, I inevitably crossed paths with Holden. But unlike before, he now had Yasmin's support and was soaring to new heights. I was acting in a drama while he was participating in a variety show. Everywhere I turned, he seemed to be one step ahead of me, but I didn't care at all. I had no idea what he was trying so hard for. My relationship with Yasmin had long been a mere formality. One day, the production team prepared lunchboxes for everyone, and as usual, I had my assistant bring me 2 portions and left. Before long, I overheard some actors from the same crew discussing nearby. "No way, Ms. Bailey is here to visit again." I didn't pay attention, continuing to eat my meal when a pair of white high heels suddenly entered my line of sight. I looked up and, sure enough, it was Yasmin, followed closely by Holden. "You go ahead and keep busy." I sent my assistant away, putting down my lunchbox to look at Yasmin. Wasn't she here to see her beloved? What was she doing coming to find me for no reason? In a few days, it's Grandpa's birthday. Remember to come. She dropped those words and left. This time, however, Holden didn't follow Yasmin. Instead, he stared at me with resentment. "Francis, do you think you've won just like this?" I was a bit taken aback. Won what? Accompanying Yasmin to a banquet, did he think that would make her infatuated with me? Though I didn't like Yasmin, her grandfather treated me well. When Yasmin and I got out of different cars, and Holden was trailing behind her, the guests had already seen it all before. It was common knowledge in high society that she liked Holden. Old Mr. Bailey saw me and kindly beckoned me over. "Francis, come here." I instantly changed my previous indifference towards Yasmin and put on a bright smile. "Grandpa." The meal was quite tense, with the old man occasionally glancing at Yasmin and then at Holden. Once the guests moved on to other areas, the old man's cane thudded against the ground. "I told you to keep your distance from this man and treat Francis better." "Is this how you do it?" Yasmin remained silent, lowering her head as she accepted her grandfather's scolding. On the other hand, Holden couldn't help but speak up, feeling sorry for her. "Grandpa Bailey, I wanted to come over myself, it has nothing to do with Yasmin." "Shut up. Who is your grandpa?" "Get out of here, just looking at you makes me feel ill." Holden gritted his teeth in frustration and then pointed at me. "I can leave, but I must expose Francis Clark's true colors." He gave me the room card to Yasmin's place for 10 million, clearly becoming the Bailey family's grandson-in-law. Yet he still tries to flirt with Velvet and show off in the entertainment industry, bringing shame to the Bailey family. I was genuinely amused by his ridiculousness. The old man could hardly enjoy his birthday, and he was still trying to compete with me. What was he thinking? "So when you and Yasmin are together, this is how you discuss me?" I slowly asked him. He opened his mouth but eventually cast a pleading look at Yasmin, who showed no sign of emotion. Yasmin looked at me coldly and spoke. "What about you and Velvet? You weren't cozy together? You weren't often seen together?" The two of them were quite the pair, just like former lovers. But I had nothing to fear. Velvet and I were solid as brothers. Even if Velvet and I shared a bed, nothing would happen. After I said that, Yasmin frowned at me. Holden's face, however, flashed a hint of guilt. He quickly stepped forward to comfort Yasmin. Today is Grandpa's birthday, let's just forget about it. I was furious. When he was talking about me earlier, how come he didn't remember the old man's birthday? In the end, the old man didn't plan to mediate anymore. He was so angry that he struck the ground with his cane and then left. I looked at Yasmin and said firmly, I, Francis Clark, will definitely get a divorce. A glimmer of joy flashed in Holden's eyes. The rift between Yasmin and me had finally torn open, and it was just a matter of time before the divorce. The situation ended on a sour note, and since my parents had long signed my life away, I no longer had contact with them. As for Velvet's offer to help me compensate, I coldly refused. I had to earn that money myself and throw it in Yasmin's face, making sure she wouldn't dare to look down on me again. I couldn't lose face. I continued to portray the cold-blooded killer's second male lead in the drama, and it finally became a hit after airing. Because of the dual male lead situation, my fans and Holden's fans started to argue. The director had already stated it was a dual male lead, but his fans insisted on calling me the second male lead. Holden went down to comfort his fans and even posted a little essay. No one can always be the main character, and no one will always be the second male lead. His words seemed to be speaking up for me in front of others, but I knew better. I understood exactly what he meant. However, I didn't fight back since the stronger one always has the louder voice. I comforted the fans in the group, telling them not to argue with others and to just enjoy our little circle. When the adorable fans in the group saw me pop up, they exploded with excitement, saying, "Our little bees have to be the most rational fans on the internet." With the new drama's ratings skyrocketing, Holden and I became the next big thing together. No matter what I did, I was constantly compared to him in the industry. My salary had multiplied several times, and I had already made over 90 million. I just needed to find a moment to meet Yasmin and then we could part ways. Meanwhile, I was still planning my next role when suddenly a bunch of photos of me with Yasmin appeared online, claiming I was being kept by this wealthy woman. Shock, new top star allegedly being kept. Also, my earlier participation in a variety show was dug up, revealing Yasmin's special treatment towards me and my abundant resources, which only confirmed the marketing speculations. Watching the chaotic guesses from everyone, I couldn't help but smirk. I am the genuine son-in-law of the Bailey family, and I hadn't spent a single penny of Yasmin's money over the years, so how could this be considered being kept? Velvet told me to avoid making any hasty moves and see if we could let the team handle the public relations. Just when I was about to suppress this matter, Holden tagged me. "Francis, have you seen Yasmin recently? I haven't visited her lately." This was no different from bringing the issue back to the surface. I understood his intentions. He had tried to sow discord at the birthday party and was now trying to use public opinion to force me into a decision. Should I quietly divorce Yasmin now? Or should I let the whole internet mock me as a married wealthy son-in-law making money in the entertainment industry? I frowned at the online comments. I had initially thought I could just pay $1 billion to get a divorce. But now, if I divorced Yasmin, wouldn't that $1 billion just go into Holden's pocket? A deal of $10 million for $1 billion was a sure win for Holden. But I didn't want to just hand over that money so easily. I messaged Yasmin, asking her when she was free to sign the divorce agreement. To avoid attracting the Bailey family's attention, we decided to meet at the Grand Hotel to sign the documents the day after tomorrow. With everything planned, I called Velvet to ask her to keep a close eye on Holden. Before long, she sent me Holden's latest movements. Looking at the message on my phone, a smirk of mockery appeared on my face. The fish had taken the bait. Soon, netizens discovered that Holden was Yasmin's first love. They recalled how he was gifted luxury cars and how a light show was arranged in an advertising building to celebrate his birthday, with countless instances of special treatment. However, everything changed during the years he went overseas. Everyone felt they had bitten into a huge scoop. They said that during the time Holden wasn't by Yasmin's side, I might have taken the opportunity to steal his girlfriend. I rolled my eyes at the messy speculations. If I had known earlier that Yasmin had an unforgettable first love, I definitely wouldn't have looked at her twice. Back then, I was just captivated by her appearance. I thought she was simply cold to everyone, but she had long been taken. And this big flirt was of no use. She married me to please her grandfather while secretly entangled with Holden. I must have run into the worst luck in my life to stumble upon these two. Fans from both sides were arguing fiercely online, with many accusing me of being the male third party. But I just laughed coldly, printed the divorce agreement, and sent Yasmin a message. Don't forget, we meet at 8 tonight. Velvet would accompany me, just in case anything went wrong. When we arrived at the hotel, as soon as Velvet and I got out of the car, we noticed someone in the crowd following us. We exchanged glances and pretended to be oblivious as we made our way to the reserved spot. Yasmin was already sitting there, and I glanced at my phone. The live stream capturing my divorce with Yasmin had already topped the charts. Holden really was a clever one. If I divorced Yasmin, there would be no more dirt on me in the future. Though I had been in the industry for a short time, I had climbed the ranks faster than anyone else, which made Holden feel threatened. After learning that I wanted to divorce Yasmin, he specifically contacted a major influencer to stalk me and livestream our divorce process. When I eventually found out, no matter how many explanations I had, I wouldn't be able to clear the situation. Before we even finished our meals, Holden walked in through the door. He looked at me innocently and said, "Francis, are you really going to divorce Yasmin?" To be honest, Yasmin and I are just good friends, just like you and Velvet. Looking at his casual tone, I couldn't understand what Yasmin saw in him. He had no masculinity at all. No, it was completely different. Could he not insult the brotherhood between me and Velvet? Meanwhile, the influencer he had contacted in advance was already sitting at the table next to us, recording everything he said clearly. I looked down at the live stream on my phone. At this point, some people had already started to stir the pot. Seriously? They really got married in secret? How disgusting. Isn't the Bailey family rich enough? Why come and taint the entertainment industry? My Holden is truly kind-hearted, being interrupted by others, and even urging them not to divorce. I thought he had acted enough already. Putting my phone away, my eyes were red as I spoke. It's all my fault. If I had known you two were in love, I wouldn't have agreed when Yasmin said she wanted to marry me while you were abroad. Holden's expression finally cracked upon hearing this, while Yasmin looked at me with furrowed brows, waiting for my next words. I definitely wouldn't disappoint the audience in the live stream. I took a card from my pocket and placed it on the table. Here's 100 million. It's money I earned from acting, and part of it was borrowed from Velvet. It's enough to cover the agreement we signed before. When I took out the card, I caught a glimpse of the blogger next to me who couldn't help but lean in to get a better look. Holden was stunned. He never expected there was a coercive contract between Yasmin and me. Now it was my turn for a dramatic reversal. I took out the divorce agreement and handed Yasmin a pen. "Sign it." The woman's gaze was fixed on me, as if trying to read my thoughts. She silently pushed the card back to me, while Holden quickly sat beside Yasmin. "Yasmin, he's been with the Bailey family for so long, he must have spent quite a bit. You can take this money." But this time, Yasmin ignored him, tightly gripping the pen I had given her, hesitating over the signature line. Taking advantage of the moment, I glanced at the live stream, where a barrage of wow filled the screen. Amidst that, there were a few comments pointing out that I was the real victim here. As for the blogger beside us, they continued filming the situation. Anyone who didn't capitalize on the traffic would be foolish. Sign, Yasmin. Do you think there's any point in dragging this out? I said slowly. Holden's eyes were glued to that pen. Yet Yasmin still didn't sign. In the end, she pushed the agreement aside. I'll take it back to the Bailey family for my lawyer to review the terms. Let's eat first. I treated Velvet to dinner for my divorce, and she pulls this stunt? Yasmin, this document shouldn't be a problem. Holden wanted to say something but was silenced by a cold glance from Yasmin, swallowing his words. The live stream exploded. Sign it, you heartless woman. Please don't delay my Francis from making money. Didn't you notice Ms. Fenley didn't take any money from Francis? Maybe she's not a bad person. Hope you sign a contract for 100 million when you get married. Passers-by were speaking up for me, but the dinner table was eerily silent. I didn't know what Yasmin was scheming, but I was ready with the money. This time I wouldn't compromise. By the time the trending topics were dominated by last night's live stream, it was already the next day. The whole internet was buzzing about the exorbitant prenup, and Holden's attempt to use it for his own gain. The blogger couldn't stand Holden's fake persona and exposed that he had invited him to film the divorce scene. My fan group was also rallying for me. Poor Francis, even in the industry, he has to deal with little affairs mocking him. I need to go yell at Holden again. Holden was once a heartthrob in the entertainment industry, now affectionately called Adulterer Holden. Overnight, everyone was on my side. It could be said that the blogger Holden hired was essentially sowing his own shroud, while he faced a backlash from the entire internet. Yasmin was also deep in controversy, facing questions from the Bailey family and other pressures. No matter how many people supported me, I remained silent, respecting the fact that Yasmin had pushed a 100 million card back to me. Late at night, I returned home from the company, but before I could even open the door, I was blocked by Yasmin, who reeked of alcohol. "Did you buy the blogger and the trending topics?" Her question genuinely made me laugh. Why would I need to do that? But I already knew Holden's plan. There was no way I would just give away this 100 million. "No, I don't like to occupy public resources," I replied coldly. Yasmin continued, "Yeah, I don't think it was you, but why do you want to divorce me?" This woman was definitely drunk. I slowly expressed my thoughts. "We're not suitable." "How are we not suitable? If we weren't suitable, then why did you agree to marry me in the first place? Maybe I liked you then, but you've been entangled with Holden, putting me in a position of betrayal. Why should I stay in the middle? If I draw a line with him, would you still stay?" I kept my head down, responding to Yasmin with silence. "I understand now." The next day, a thick folder was delivered to my place. I opened it to find the divorce agreement signed by Yasmin. I happily tweeted, "Now I'm a single nobleman." Just 3 seconds later, I received a like. I looked closer and found it was from Holden. I was somewhat speechless and immediately blocked him. Now I could peacefully await the year-end award for Best Actor at the Orange Channel. Holden's bright future was ruined by himself. This award is rightfully mine. But the next day, someone in the fan group tagged me, saying Holden was going crazy online. I blocked him and could only use a fan's alternate account to check. Holden wrote a long post, essentially saying he had accompanied Yasmin for many years, but after going overseas, he was usurped by someone, me. He accused me of being unscrupulous for money, claiming I sold Yasmin for 10 million. And that my family was poor, taking a large sum from the Bailey family before the marriage. He also mentioned Yasmin and him being judges on the show together, saying it was all just a charade to provoke me. The last line was, "Francis Clark, now that Yasmin likes you, are you satisfied?" I glanced at it without speaking. Whether Yasmin liked me or not was no longer important. What mattered was that I had long stopped liking her. Maybe when she returned and spent time with Holden, she realized she didn't actually like him. But when she went abroad to celebrate Holden's birthday, leaving me alone at the engagement banquet to face the guests' ridicule, that was the moment I was disappointed in her. And Holden's post was just an attempt to clear his name. He and Yasmin had always been playing games. I scoffed and commented, "Can't get into the Bailey family door, now you want to return to the entertainment circle to make money?" My comment resonated with the masses and quickly pushed to the forefront. Holden couldn't avoid seeing it. He was furious, and when he replied, he naturally held nothing back. "You're Francis Clark's dog, right?" His words ignited the anger of everyone, and they demanded an explanation from his company. How could they keep such a morally bankrupt artist in the industry? In the end, the official statement claimed that staff members liked Holden too much, which is why they used his account to insult fans. However, the online public wasn't so easily fooled this time and began to boycott all products endorsed by Holden. The brand promptly severed ties with him, and the new spokesperson fell into my lap. Velvet called to tell me that I was getting endorsements left and right these days. Meanwhile, Holden had no one logging into his account anymore. It had been taken over by the company. By the end of the year, the Best Male Lead award from Orange TV was indeed mine. Once a peer, Holden was now labeled a morally corrupt artist, and staff refused him entry to the venue. He was outside, cursing me over and over, and many media outlets caught it on camera. But because he was affecting others' entry, the security had no choice but to drive him away. Holding the trophy, I stood on the shining podium, while reporters from various outlets captured my perfect moment. Extra chapter. Actually, on the day of the wedding, I didn't sleep soundly. I even squinted to secretly watch Francis for a long time. I watched him berate me fiercely. "Yasmin Bailey, you're the worst kind of woman, your name says it all." I didn't move. After all, I had indeed done many hurtful things to him before. I thought to myself that once he had vented enough and calmed down, everything would be fine. After he finished cursing, he left the room. I thought he was just thirsty, so I didn't act immediately, wanting to prepare a bit more, and lay quietly on the bed. After a while, someone entered the room. A large hand, with distinct knuckles, touched my waist. I thought it was Francis, but to my surprise, it was Holden. I struggled to push him away and coldly said, "Why are you here?" "Where did Francis go?" Holden's eyes were red like before, and he didn't say a word. I didn't comfort him. Instead, I remembered how Francis had been furious and wanted to break off our engagement that day. However, his parents took a large sum from the Fenley family, and since we signed a contract, he couldn't shake off being my husband. The day I went abroad for Holden's birthday party, actually wanted to cut off all my feelings and live well with Francis. Why couldn't he understand me? Seeing that I wasn't comforting him, Holden realized his tactic wasn't working. He then said Francis was a materialistic man who sold me for 10 million, he only married me for money. I was furious and immediately called that man. On the phone, Francis's voice was quite cheerful, nothing like the heavy tone he always used when facing me. He promised to come back right away. Holden and I waited in the room for a long time, even the paparazzi were knocking at the door, but that man never showed up. Surrounded by assistants, Holden and I awkwardly left the hotel. Once in the car, Holden gently said beside me, "Yasmin, Francis doesn't like you, he likes Velvet. He only married you for money." I knew deep down that if Francis really liked money, he wouldn't give up the position of the Bailey family's son-in-law. But Holden saying he liked Velvet made me very angry. When I found out he had just left the hotel, he rushed to find Velvet. Moreover, Velvet was secretly inspecting her own company's performance, and few knew she would go there, yet he seemed to know. Clearly, when agreeing to our engagement, Francis said he had completely severed ties with Velvet, and they would be enemies in the future. So what was this now? Childhood sweethearts rekindling their romance? Time passed. I found out he was going to debut on a show, so I spent money to have Holden take his place as a judge. I thought he would back down. But he didn't, which made me even angrier. Can't he just come back to the Bailey family and live a good life with me? What can he do with the little money he makes out there? During the intermission, I went backstage to confront him. But this man pretended not to know me and even signed with Fenley Group. My family's entertainment company has good resources too. Why does he insist on going to Fenley's? At that moment, I was sure he was with Velvet Fenley. So, whatever role he played, I would provide Holden with even better resources. But later, he still managed to rise to fame through his own efforts and with Velvet's help. I started to panic, he probably really wanted to get rid of me. But if he just asked Velvet for 100 million to pay the breach of contract fee, he could have escaped being the son-in-law of the Bailey family. The fact that Francis didn't do that might suggest that Velvet wasn't truly sincere with him, and he would come back to me? I thought about it for a long time and decided to show him the difference between the man who stays with Velvet and the man who stays with me. A dual male lead drama was born. I hadn't seen him for a long time. Every time I went to see Holden, I only stole a few glances at him. But why can Velvet openly see him? I went to see him under the pretext of my grandfather's birthday. He was eating cheap takeout, chatting with his assistant, wearing a relaxed smile that I had never had. As soon as I spoke, his expression turned cold. So, am I not even as good as his little assistant? I left angrily, and Holden chased after me, asking if he could come to my grandfather's birthday. I thought, why should I be the only one feeling jealous? Why can't Francis feel jealous of me? I brought Holden to grandfather's birthday party, and that day Francis asked for a divorce again. I realized he was serious. Sure enough, it wasn't long before he said he had saved up 100 million and wanted me to come sign the divorce agreement. I arrived at the restaurant early, ordered his favorite dishes, but what I got was him and Velvet. Holden also showed up, and in that situation, I couldn't possibly ask him not to divorce me. So I said I would take the agreement home to let my lawyer take a look. The meal was extremely silent, and I noticed that he didn't touch any of the dishes he used to love. He seemed to have changed a lot. That night, I drank a lot. When I woke up, the overwhelming divorce news jolted me awake. Holden called to tell me that Francis had bought those stories. He didn't want to lose that 100 million for nothing, so he was dragging me down with him. I impatiently hung up the phone and drove to find Velvet, asking her if she had any relationship with Francis. I didn't want to be misled by my own suspicions and push Francis further away. Velvet said, "Francis and I are buddies, but I can stay by his side now for 5 years or even 10 years. And by then, I won't be just a buddy anymore. Yasmin, I used to think you were my competition, but now I don't, you're not worthy." After leaving Velvet's place, I wandered aimlessly on the street, reflecting on everything. It was just me pushing him further away. In the afternoon, I intentionally drank a lot and then went to block him at his place. This time, I gave up my pride, but all I got was his silence. Deep down, I had already anticipated this outcome, hadn't I? I signed the divorce agreement. Holden said he was about to become a has-been and asked for my help, but I ignored him and focused on handling company matters. Many years later, when I saw Francis holding a little golden statue, standing together with Velvet and announcing their engagement, I felt empty inside, yet a smile crept onto my lips. It was time to let go. I called home. Mom, do you still have that man's contact information you mentioned last time? I hope this time I won't lose to my pride and find the one who belongs to me.